Welcome back to Mac Music Review. Before I hop into the review, just want to say there's going to be some stuff down in the description. If you want to know how the channel works, all that good stuff is going to be down in the description. Today, we are looking at the soundtrack to the movie A Ghost Story, and this is a picture of either the movie poster or the soundtrack to the movie poster. Here it is. This soundtrack was created by Daniel Hart. Definitely not one of the more well-known people in the industry of movie scores and movie soundtracks. You know, the well-known names are Thomas Newman, Hans Zimmer, of course, is the biggest one. We've covered him on this channel. Hans Zimmer, Thomas Newman, some other people. I used to keep up with it. I used to kind of know stuff about it. It's been a while since I listened to a movie soundtrack. But I reviewed this a while ago, so we're going over it on the channel. And Daniel Hart, he did the soundtrack to the movie Pete's Dragon, the live-action version, and that's about the most popular movie he's done a soundtrack for. All the other ones are really small, kind of insignificant films like this one. Even though this film did have a big critical impact, like, critics really liked this movie, but normal people thought it was kind of weird. Most people thought it was kind of weird, but it was a hit with movie critics. A Ghost Story. This soundtrack really isn't all that long. I think it's a little bit over 40 minutes. It only has like a little over 10 tracks, so really not a super big soundtrack. And I think the movie isn't super long either. I think it's like an hour and 30 minutes. I haven't seen the movie, which is kind of weird that I reviewed the soundtrack, but I just kind of picked this one at random, and I'm glad I did. But before I tell you what I think about the album, I want to just kind of describe this music on this soundtrack in case you haven't heard it yet. This soundtrack, it's a lot of it is kind of sparse, and that's kind of the point of the movie. I can tell it fits the vibe of the movie. The movie is very quiet. It's very long and drawn out. It takes a lot of patience to watch because there are scenes where virtually nothing is happening and it's all symbolism, it all means something, it's all stark. And you can tell that with this music. A lot of it is violin, especially the first few tracks. And then you have songs like the last song, Safe, 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 which actually has some electronic elements. And it's kind of the structure of the song is like an ambient noise track with this continual electronic drum beat. It just goes continuing, and then there's little sound effects in the background that change over time. So it's ambient music. And you have other songs in this album that sound that way. One of the songs, I don't know how to pronounce it, has like an opera. There's an opera vibe going for it. There's a female opera singer. She's singing in another language. And then you have that music, and a lot of it's kind of eerie. A lot of it's kind of stark. And, you know, you could tell it fits the movie. It fits with the movie pretty well. And it creates an atmosphere. And then, right in the middle of the soundtrack, you have the song I Get Overwhelmed by Dark Rooms. I've never heard of Dark Rooms before, but after listening to the song, I've gathered that they're like an alternative band, an alternative indie band, super obscure. And they create this really loud, intense song with a lot of electronic elements and it's just kind of loud and aggressive, and it's called I Get Overwhelmed. And the song, it makes you feel overwhelmed with the lyrics and the earnesty of the singer's voice and the music. It's all kind of overwhelming. It's coming at you from all sides. And it is awesome. This song is great. Really, really great song. I've never heard of Dark Rooms, but fantastic song. There's another song on this album which is like I Get Overwhelmed reprise called History right at the end of the album. Second last song on the album. And that song has the music is different. The music is pretty peaceful and it fits more with the other songs on the album, but it's playing the lyrics of the song. And it doesn't play the whole song, it only plays like some of it. But it's interesting. And I Get Overwhelmed is a fantastic song. This soundtrack is a little sparse. It takes a little bit of patience to listen to it, especially when you're having to sit through something like the opera piece on this album. That's really my biggest complaint is the opera piece, because it just doesn't sound great. I mean, I personally don't like it. I guess there are some people who kind of like that sort of thing in another language, sung by, like, you know, a fat woman, and you can tell from the thing, like the stereotype. And, you know, that, it's kind of hard to listen to that. It's not great. But the rest of the soundtrack, really great strings, really they create a vibe. This soundtrack creates a vibe for the movie that just sounds really good and works really well. The soundtrack is just really well made. It sounds really good. It's different. It's unique. It's a really good soundtrack. Plus, I Get Overwhelmed is a fantastic song. Also, the soundtrack's not too long. That's another great thing about it. It's, just long enough. You finish it and you're done with it and you're like, that was good. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's not over long. It's not over boring. Oh no, this is a really well made, really good soundtrack. Like I said, the only thing I really have against this is the opera song, because it doesn't sound that great. But this is a well made, high quality soundtrack. Really cool. I'm going to give this thing 4 stars out of 5. You gotta listen to I Get Overwhelmed. You gotta listen to that song. You gotta look up the soundtrack. Look up a Ghost Story soundtrack, and then click on that song. It's right in the middle. Or just search I Get Overwhelmed, because by Dark Rooms. It is fantastic. More people need to hear this song. It's so good. It's so tense. It's so awesome. It's so well sung. The music is fantastic. It's original. It's interesting, especially if you like alternative music or indie music. You'll like this song. Indie electronic. It's really cool. This is a really good song. Check it out.